everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another Hannibal reaction video. So today I'm going to be watching, reviewing, and reacting to Season 1, Episode 11 of Hannibal. Where we left off, Will is not in a good place at all since we've discovered now that he has encephalitis, but he does not know that. The only living person who knows that is Hannibal, and Hannibal is very much deciding to keep that to himself for whatever his purposes are, whatever he's doing, trying to play with Will. He seems to want to allow him to continue to decline and become sicker and sicker as it's affecting his mental state. And even seems to be trying to convince Will that it's all perhaps mental illness as opposed to what it clearly is. And then you also have Jack on Will's other side, kind of pushing him in certain directions for his own agenda as well. So Will is not in a good place at all, and I'm very curious to see what happens. I hope he gets some treatment sometime soon, but yeah. So before I just jump into this episode, I want to say a quick thank you to all of my patrons, everyone who's new who came out to support me on Patreon, and everyone who's been sticking around for the long term. Without you guys, I wouldn't be able to do all these shows. And if you are somebody that's interested in supporting me on Patreon, this is, I know, possibly big for Hannibal fans because a lot of my older videos for Hannibal got blocked on YouTube. But if you're interested in that, I'll put a link in the description below. There's various tiers. You also could get early access to Hannibal videos. So, but just if you're interested, if you're not, no big deal. We've got YouTube here. And with that all being said, let's get going. Let's see what poor Will has to suffer through this week. Oh boy. Here we go.
Someone who already doubts their own identity can be more susceptible to manipulation.
Ooh, a Chilton episode.
Dr. Gideon is a psychopath. Psychopaths
We're talking about Gideon again, too.
Down to the young.
Tried to
I'm excited now.
appeal to his narcissism.
By convincing him he was a Chesapeake River.
If only I had been more curious about the common mind.
I have no interest in understanding sheep, only eating them. Kudal, South Indian curry.
Gonna eat a sheep right
Made from
now.
sheep, of course. Bathed in a coconut coriander chili sauce.
Oh, Chilton.
It feels like a Last Supper.
How many people have you
You're not the
unintentionally
only
consumed?
psychiatrist accused by a patient of making them kill. Poke around a psychopath's mind, bound to get pulled back.
What would you do in my position?
Deny everything.
Of course he would.
I thought psychic driving would have been more effective in breaking down his personality.
Psychic driving fails because its methods are too obvious. You were trying too hard, Frederick. If force is used, the subject will only surrender temporarily. Once the patient is exposed to the method of manipulation, it becomes much less effective.
This is very funny because it's
When
like
Dr. Gideon began to
he's
suspect he was
driving
being
him right
pushed
now,
back.
pushing him, and
The
then
subject
maybe
must be
also
aware
talking
of any influence.
about Will. Yeah, he's talking about him and Will too. Poor Will. It's not good.
Gideon is having a difference of opinion about who he is. The man who escaped from that van was not in the same state of mind when he did this.
He took a uniform, police radio, 2 9mm handguns, pepper spray, taser, and handcuffs.
Well, that's what he didn't take.
He hung the organs from the branches with the name from the victims.
He tied little bows with some of them. Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Chesapeake River would not have left the organs behind.
Yeah, no.
Well, Gideon isn't Chesapeake River. He's a...
That's what Abel Gideon's afraid of, isn't it? He's like a blind man. Somebody got inside his head and moved all the furniture around.
You too, Will.
I imagine they will give you a little
Someone more
Chesapeake Ripper.
impressive.
To he is. I know he isn't. Well, you have me as your gauge.
Oh yes, that's a good thing.
Gideon didn't. What do you think will happen if Gideon finds the Chesapeake River?
Chesapeake Ripper will kill him. He took credit for his work. The Ripper would consider that rude.
But knowing what he knows, wouldn't Hannibal blame Chilton for that?
Please deliver to the Red Cross.
That's considerate.
He's peacocking for the Ripper.
This is like flowers and chocolate before a first date.
How is this news already?
Somebody from the Baltimore PD must have taken a picture of their phone and sold it to Tattoo Crime.
Photo was taken before the blood was put on ice. Dr. Gideon was still here.
Yes, Freddie Lowndes.
You might be working out the emergency exits, or at least considering them. Let me just tell you, there are 3. They're all terribly locked in.
Look on your face.
Please. You're not the Chesapeake Ripper. You got inside my mind, Frederick. It's only fair I get inside your belly.
This is, of course, Freddie Lowndes. You know, she will be assisting me today, or assisting you, by manually pumping the ventilator should you stop breathing.
Oh my God.
Oh God.
He's a collector of surgical trophies. I'll leave him a little gift. In fact, I'm going to leave him a gift basket.
God.
I was expecting the Chesapeake Ripper. Or are you he?
Oh my God, Will.
Turn around and look at me.
Hannibal!
You're looking a little
Look what you did.
pinky, Mr.
Just a
Gray.
little.
Don't mind my saying. I may be crazy, but you look ill.
Drive. Your name is Luke.
I don't care who I am. Just tell me. This is real.
What do you see, Will?
Garrett, come on. What do you see?
I don't see anyone.
Oh, he's right there.
There's no one down there.
You're lying.
You're alone. You came here alone. Do you remember coming here?
Please don't lie to me.
Garrett Jacob Hall is dead. You killed him. You watched him die.
What's happening to me?
Well, you have an episode. I want you to hand me the gun. Well, I want you to hand me your... Well?
Doesn't seem to bother you.
I said it was mild.
Oh my God.
Are you the man who claimed to be the Chesapeake Ripper?
Why do you say claimed?
Because you're not. You know you're not, and you don't know much more about who you are beyond that.
Are you the Ripper?
Terrible thing. To have your identity taken from you.
Well, I'm taking it back. One piece at a time. You should see the pieces I got out of my psychiatrist.
Alana Bloom was one of your psychiatrists, too. Is that right?
Yes, Dr. Bloom.
I can tell you where to find her.
Are you serious right now, Hannibal? Oh. You're trying to get Will to go out to save Alana?
I don't know if I will ever be myself again. I don't know if I've got any self left over. Spent so long thinking I was him. It's gotten really hard to remember who I was when I wasn't him. We all want things that we can't have. But if I kill her, like he would kill her, maybe I can understand him better. I wonder if then you would finally understand what you've become.
He makes it through the night. At least Will remains in one piece.
I'm glad Chilton's not dead.
For now.
He's entertaining.
His temperature is 105. White blood cell count is twice normal, and they still can't identify the source of his infection. The opportunity for friendship.
Very strange sort of
Yes, senior
friendship.
patient Hannibal.
Where you let someone
Where Will
almost
Graham
die
is
of
concerned,
encephalitis.
if you feel the impulse to step forward, you must force yourself to take
11. That was a really good episode. I'm pretty excited. We got Chilton, we got tons of Gideon, we got Freddie Lowndes, we got Hannibal's therapist and another one of his therapy sessions, which are fascinating. A lot of major things happening, and so first of all, that Chilton scene was pretty hard to watch, pretty brutal. And you know, as everyone who's a fan of these stories does, I'm sure, I have a lot of disdain for Chilton and his methods and the things that he does at times, but he's so extremely entertaining. So I'm really glad that they didn't kill him off there, especially because that would be a huge change to the story, since if Hannibal ever eventually does get caught, you know, he and Chilton have to have some serious interactions. So I'm glad they allowed him to apparently survive the butchering that he took at the hands of Gideon. I was also a little curious of what was going to happen when Gideon was taking Freddie Lowndes, because for those of you that know the books and some of the previous movies, there's also a storyline there with Freddie Lowndes being taken by a different serial killer that doesn't wind up so great for Freddie, though Freddie is a guy in those stories, so again, it's quite different. But I was curious what they were going to do with that there, so that was interesting to see. Hannibal, oh my god. He must, I don't know if he just, I legitimately don't know if he has some underlying kind of master plan here for what he wants to happen, particularly with Will, or if he's just kind of making choices as he goes along with each new step that occurs. He obviously, he couldn't have planned out for Will to bring Gideon to his house while in this state and then fall into a seizure where he doesn't recognize what's happening. He couldn't have planned it out that extremely. And so then he couldn't have planned out the idea of sending Gideon after Alana and then sending Will out after Gideon as a result of that. He couldn't have had that all planned out in advance before that moment. So that's clearly an example of him thinking, you know what I'm gonna do? This could definitely be interesting and maybe lead things the way I want them to go. But it's very interesting to watch. He has a long-standing relationship with Alana. He seems to genuinely like Alana, though I mean, I guess I can't assume genuine things about Hannibal. But but he's like with Will in the past, being willing to risk him. He was willing to risk her being killed by Gideon in order to hopefully obtain his chosen outcome, which seems to have been for Will to take down Gideon. For whatever reason, whether it's partially just out of like a negativity of thought towards Gideon for maintaining he was the Chesapeake Ripper, which, as Will said, Hannibal would consider rude, or if it's mostly just as part of his manipulation of Will, or maybe somewhat both. I don't know. But luckily, Will actually was able to stop him from killing Alana, so that's good, or even maiming her to the extent that Chilton was severely injured. Yeah. And then, thankfully, I guess as a consequence of this, Will has actually getting some medical treatment for his encephalitis. Now, he has a doctor who's not totally corrupted, was able to discover what was wrong with him after he completely passed out after shooting Gideon. So thankfully, Alana was there to get him the medical treatment he actually needs. So I'll be very curious in the upcoming episodes to see the kind of after effects of this, where Will is coming out of this basically brain melting state where he's got a fever of 105 and is having stand-up seizures in Hannibal's dining room and having these like waking nightmares and seeing things. He's going to be coming out of that now and have been treated. Is he going to still be like thinking that there's serious underlying mental issues that he has to deal with? Is he going to go in the sort of seemingly almost denial aspect that Jack seemed to take, where Jack was just like, hey, even with this fever and his brain melting, Will was still able to, stop Gideon. So I'm totally convinced now that once he gets treated for this, that he's going to be fine, that this was the cause of all the issues to begin with. So I don't feel like Will's going to be in that level of denial, because he knows that this has always impacted him to some degree, but not to that extent. But I'm very curious to see when his brain is operating at peak Will capacity without the encephalitis. Is he going to be able to, question more about Hannibal's involvement in these things? I mean, Hannibal was literally there when he had the MRI previously, and when the doctor told him that nothing was wrong with him. So I'm just curious how Hannibal's gonna explain this, and if Will, in a more, I guess, mentally sound condition and physically sound condition, is gonna be as likely to just believe him about everything. So we'll see. Very interesting things ahead. And what if Will has some sort of memories? I guess Hannibal's counting on the seizure and the advanced fever to make it so that Will won't remember anything about being there in his dining room, or just thinking that it's a delusion or something. I don't know. He's playing some games there, Hannibal, that could be dangerous for him. So I'm also very interested in that conversation with his therapist at the end. Again, he's saying that what he hopes to see in Will, what he sees in Will, is somebody that feels things and thinks things differently than most humans, like he himself, Hannibal, does, although kind of in diametrically opposed ways to some extent. And that he sees the possibility of friendship, and that's what he's pushing for. Now, like I said, it seems weird to me if you want to be friends with someone that you continually put their life at risk, and you allow their brain to melt, and you emotionally manipulate them and psychically drive them the way that he's been getting into his head and picking him apart. Seems weird to me, but that's a Hannibal way to go. And because he has some sort of goal, and that goal seems to be partially that Will is his friend. So I don't know if it's just that Hannibal thinks that in order to actually have a friend who he can feel close with, that he has to have them under his control to some extent, or if he's trying to shape Will in some way to make him into the ideal friend. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to find out. All right. So if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, anything you'd like to discuss, please leave them down in the comment section below. And I'll wrap this video up for today. So thank you very much for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye.